Logging with Nick here on a Thursday morning. How's PV working today, Nick?
Fine.
Nick, do you feel like I appreciate you?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I make you feel appreciated.
Yep.
You know where I think I fall short?
Huh.
I don't think I make the horses feel appreciated. I do everything for them. I do everything for their comfort and their health. But I don't always just appreciate them as much as I should. I always feel like, God, I'm always looking for the next little bit better step. You know, sometimes I appreciate, you know, like Zodiac, a beautiful horse. Multifloral rose, thorn bush I just hit with my hand while I'm talking to you. You know, I appreciate his beauty. Or Jim Bob here. Hey, Jimmy. You know, I appreciate his muscle. You know, look at that booty. There's some muscle there. You know, no, I appreciate a good puller or something like that. But just to appreciate what they do for us, what they give us each day. I don't feel like I appreciate that as much as I should. And a lot of times I'm always looking for something a little better. You know, even if I appreciate them, I want the next step. And, you know, maybe I need to rethink that. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not speaking for all horse loggers, because I think a lot of guys really appreciate their horses. You know, Steve Perrine, I got you. Putting a block there so that doesn't roll, so Nick can keep rolling this log. Steve Perrine, I don't think anybody is better about appreciating their teams than Steve Perrine. You know, I got a horse at home who's 24 or 5 years old. And the truth is, okay, Nick, I got it with my leg. We could probably put her to work tomorrow. And if we needed an extra horse, put some shoes on her and put her right in the woods. And she's done that since a 2-year-old. And she raised me a fine foal. And she's almost never took a lame step. In fact, she never has taken a lame step. Here, Nick. We'll move it with the double PV. Go ahead and unhitch that. You and I will get that together. Anyway, I kind of been reflecting on that, and it's something I could do a lot better than I'm doing. Maybe something I'll try to step up. Just driving this team this morning was making me think of that. How what they've given to me lately. And I don't know, I suppose I grew up around some pretty darn good horses. My first horse I ever had, to this day, might be the best horse I ever had. You know, kind of a tall, slim, absolutely gorgeous Percheron mare who was so sweet. Her build would kind of, she's a little taller than Zodiac, but she was every bit as pretty with the long neck. She had a black color, just a beautiful sharp black. And her training was impeccable, and so was the horses we hooked her with. And she raised like 8 foals. And now there's something to appreciate. A horse that every day worked either in the woods or on the farm or sometimes both, and raised 8 foals. You know, what the hell is that worth? That got me a start in life, you know. You know, I got her as a Christmas present when I was 10 years old. By the time I was 20, she had 8 foals, and you know, I sold each of them, and that kind of put me in a position to get life started with a truck and trailer, kind of like my buddy Nathan Hine, who recently passed up in Massachusetts. Nathan had a tremendous team of Charlet oxen, and when he sold them, that's how he built his farm, built his house and barn, and bought his land. You know, and Nathan appreciated that team. So just a little rambling about that kind of stuff. Nick, you want to roll them, and then I'll help. Yeah, it's something we overlook. But I guess the point I was making about those good horses we had growing up, that one's good for now. Get the upper 3. At such a high standard. You know, my dad was so good at training, probably a better trainer than I am. And he just, that's what he wanted. And he appreciated good horses also. I remember as a kid driving, he said, why do they do this? You know, why do they lean into the collar and pull this mowing machine all day or something like that? He'd just say as he was working, passing the time. But when you grow up around that high standard, you're always looking to repeat that. And it's one of those things, you know, I forgot who had the quote, but maybe you're not as good as you think you were. You know, people who get out of a sport like horse pulling, for instance, and then get back into it. You know, God forbid you're not as good as you remember yourself being. And maybe that's what I'm remembering. Maybe those horses were good, but not as good as I remember. And the ones I'm driving today are every bit as good. My horses today are definitely more powerful and move a bigger load. But I don't know if they're any better. They're certainly not better trained. You know, I'm going to put some pictures of that black team in here. It was a stud and a mare, my mare and my dad's stud. They don't come any better trained. And the mare was pretty good at a pulling contest. The stud wasn't. But there was nothing he couldn't do in the woods. I mean, you know, you could take a champion pulling horse and he wasn't gonna work beside old Doc even on a really big load. I'm starting to sound like some of my buddies, but maybe I'm starting to understand why they don't value pulling as much. But yeah, I guess maybe horse loggers ought to come up with like a horse appreciation day or something like that, where we think about the horses and appreciate them a little more. Logging with Jim and Zodiac today. Doing some soft maple so far today. We're moving on to some other things here later. Come here, Jimmy. Hi, buddy. Oh, I thank a lot of friends and family. I'm always pretty good about being appreciative. But I tell you, sometimes I don't thank enough these guys right here. Zodiac, you dork, and Jim. I tell you, this team of horses have been putting it in the last couple weeks, and we've had hot weather, and they've been there for me. And just thinking today as I'm skidding along how much I appreciate that. And boy, they say dogs are man's best friend, and I got a pretty good boy for a dog, but I do think I ought to thank these horses, and we ought to appreciate what the teams do for us, and I don't think they do that often enough. Whoa. Yes, next week. Today is Thursday. About a week from today, a lot of us are thinking of going to Horse Progress Day. I love it. Maybe someday, because I need more nonsense in my life, maybe someday I'll come up with a Horse Appreciation Day and be a part of that. Invite all you folks, and we'll get some teams, and we'll just appreciate horses and what they do for us. Now, that's not to unappreciate mules, or maybe I should say draft animals, because really appreciate oxen and always have. Hey, don't do that. That was a bad move. Silly. Jim was itching his bridle and Nick threw a little piece of bark just to warn him not to, but geez, if you don't have a hold of the lines, you better not try that. We're going to allow him a little freedom today because that pole evil's bothering him, and we're going to appreciate him and allow him to do a little of that. Anyway, maybe that's something we'll come up with, a Draft Animal Appreciation Day. Horses, mules, ponies, oxen, and we'll just appreciate what they do for us. Of course, I'm coming at it from a working aspect, where I appreciate them putting logs on the land and or turning furrows. This could be a little curly. So we're gonna set this chunk on here and remind the log buyer to look extra careful at that. By God, get your checkbook out if that's curly. I should know better than to come up with ideas like Horse Appreciation Day on a whim while I'm working. Then somebody will hold me to it. Next thing I know, I'm ass deep in a project. That sounds like a lot of fun, but difficult to find the time for. But it doesn't take anything to find the time, and it doesn't cost any money for us to appreciate our horses and what they do for us and what they give back to us. I'll tell you something else that I think I'm guilty of, and a lot of us are. Sometimes when we compete and we're involved in competitions, wheel check. Sometimes when we compete, we lose sight of appreciating just the fact that these horses work for us, and we focus on the competition. This pair, this year together, has yet to set the world on fire as far as the pulling team goes, but holy cow, what more could I ask for as from a work team? And sometimes we got to think about where we set that standard. Nick, that little curly piece I put there, you think you can make a GoPro out of that again?
Sure, yeah.
We're too cheap to buy a real GoPro, so my poor viewers get what they get. We're gonna pick this log up. This log, Nick.
Yeah.
We're gonna move it up there, so hopefully we're in sight. Because I'm a nice dad, I'm gonna give Nick. I'm gonna kick a little weeds down here. Hopefully that'll help your viewing. I'm going to give Nick the downhill around here. Get a grip low is the key. Low. Low. And I'm going to walk through this brush and Nick will walk forward. Here. Oh, that probably didn't show up on camera, but down went Frazier. I went down. Oh. Maybe you saw me at the beginning there. Whoop. Here I am. There's Nick. How come you're not laughing? If you look right here, I was standing right here and this is all weeds. I didn't realize how that dropped off and whoop, down I went. That's funny now. Mm-hmm. Probably in a few years that won't be as funny. People will be like, oh my God, that old man fell. You know what I never want to be, Nick?
What?
Harmless. I never want to walk into a place or talk to somebody's wife or something. Yeah, go ahead. And have them say, oh, that's just Brandt. He's harmless. I don't want to become harmless. I want to be a dangerous old man. I'll try to set the phone down by that soft maple log. Maybe you and I can get this a different way. Let's both try to do this. Nick, I fear this isn't going to work. Well, by God, Nick got her to work. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Scott Stambro, if you're watching this video, there's a log down in there for you to reach with the truck. Grab the phone. You know what that reminds me of? One of Grandpa's old sayings. Remember him saying this? He'd say, when we had to keep working at something like we did that log, perseverance and sweet oil will screw the cat. And then every time he'd say, whatever that means.
Yeah.
That's what the old timers used to say when I was a boy. Whatever that means. Seems like we work excessively hard at this, Nick. Yeah, next time I pay the phone bill or the electric bill or whatever I have to. That's another good time to thank the horses and be appreciative of them, because they're the ones who help put that money in the account. When we're making our living logging, there wouldn't be a living if there wasn't horses. For me, anyway. You know, when we talk about Jim, that's one thing about Jim. I've owned Jim 2.5 years, something like that. And just follow me, Nick. And Jim appreciates us. I can just see it. I can just see that he appreciates knowing that we're doing everything we can to give him the most comfort. You know, he appreciates that we feed him 3 times a day on a work day instead of twice, or we brush him before we harness him. Obviously, he doesn't express that in words, but I can tell it from him. Not all horses appreciate that. But Jim is, something about his way is really expressive with that. You drink?
Oh, thank you.
Not after you, Dad. All right, Nick. Let's get some more logs out and get us a full truckload. So, Horse Appreciation Day. That's our. That's a goal. I'd love to see that. Maybe somebody else will want to take the lines and run with that, huh? Horse Appreciation Day. That's stupid. Pipsqueak, we're doing a video. No, I'm talking. Bad Appreciation Day. That's the day. Bad appreciation. You gotta appreciate the bad guys. What would cops do if there was no bad guys, huh? They wouldn't have a job. How boring would a movie be if there were no bad guys? We gotta appreciate bad people. Bad Appreciation Day. We need to make that. Yeah, good luck with that, Pipsqueak. I'm invisible. I'm an imaginary friend. You got to do it. I don't want to. No, you come up with that. Pipsqueak, let's just stick on horse. No, Bad Appreciation Day. Okay. So the landowners on this woods have a hunting objective. They want this woods opened up a little more, and we're cutting a little bit smaller tree than we'd normally take on some of these. Their objective is to get a lot of deer in here. And Wyoming County, farm country, you need all you can get. You got to do all you can to get deer in here because there's plenty for them to eat out in those fields. I find nothing wrong with that. Whatever your objective is, these woods are here to serve you. And if that means hunting, great. If that means long-term investment in timber, which they've also done. This is Brian's managed this piece for 20 years. But that's good if only dollars and cents matter. If just beauty matters, you know, and it does to me. I used to own a little stand of red pine, and really should have been thin. I just plain liked looking at it, so we never did anything with it. Whatever your goals are, work. So, with that said, I was telling you that because we're skidding a lot of trees that are a little smaller than we normally would. Got a decent one on here this time. Got a triple, a decent one, and the horses have the pull. So, going with this theme of appreciating the horses, let's appreciate them doing a good job as a logging team that has to get down and pull pretty good. Go ahead and we'll show it a little, Nick. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What you just saw is a good start for a logging team. For a pulling team at a contest, to be honest, I'd like a little more aggression. And also, to be honest with you, they'll give you a little more aggression at a horse pull. They know whether they're in the woods or at a pull. For this, laying down and quietly going and starting that nice and tight and easing into it, I like that a lot. It makes the day go smoother. It keeps the horses more sound in the long run. Kind of the way Dwight Shoemaker did it. The last horse pull I videoed, the Father's Day one. If somebody commented, all three classes at that pull, the winners were the best behaved and the teams that started it nice and easy and eased into it. So hey, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they don't need any more aggression. Maybe they're doing what they can. But watch, get a view of them starting, Nick. I didn't start that hard, actually. For a guy talking about appreciating his horses, I did kind of an asshole move here. I stopped it in what should be a bit of a hard spot for him, just for you folks in the camera, so you can watch him make a decent start. And maybe this won't start that hard, but really, for the horse's sake, I should have kept going out there and not stopped it in a rough spot. But I want to emphasize how this team starts. It just didn't quite pull as hard as I expected. Hop on, Nick, and we'll talk while we're skidding. Hey, let me make a point right here. Yeah, you can get it from up there. This is a hard maple. One of the hardest things to teach people is the difference between hard maple and soft maple. Teaching species is hard. I can teach you how to run a chainsaw safely and fall a tree effectively and safely and cut it into logs easier than I can the species. You get into gray area with species. You say things like reddish bark or brownish or the bark's a little more peely or something, you know, silly adjectives. This is hard maple. Nick, if you show from this right in front of the cart here, maybe. The wood is a little different color than a soft maple. The heartwood, this is a nice hard maple, by the way. Generally, it'll be a little more pink and a little less brown. The bark generally is a little more gray. One of the easiest ways for people to tell is literally the bark is hard. It's a harder bark. The wood is hard, but so is the bark. Soft maple peels right away. This peels a little harder. The bark is just plain harder. That's one of the easiest ways to tell hard from soft maple. Now, for most of my life, let's watch them start. They're just not going to have to start hard. It's going easy. Good for them. we appreciate them. For most of my life, until recent years, around here where I live, we did not tap soft maple. You got mocked if you tapped the soft maple. And now people on purpose tap soft. There's whole woodlots full of soft maple being tapped for maple syrup. So it used to be, until about 10 years ago around here, one way to tell a hard maple from a soft maple is if it had a sap bucket on it. But people have discovered soft maple works just as well for maple syrup. Oh, I talk about the horses as we're driving here. I am a bit of a softie, but I also know it's a rough world. And when you're a farmer, you know it's a rough world. I always said that's one of the better things being on a farm teaches kids. Teaches them ups and downs, you know. Any kid that grew up on a farm or raised any amount of livestock's had some loss. And that's sad. That's part of life, you know. And it's just something we have to deal with, unfortunately. And we have to look at hard realities sometimes. And don't think for a minute, whoa, that I'm going to be a guy that judges you. If you have a horse that's worth $3,000, come on, and you have a vet bill for that horse, maybe it needs a colic surgery that costs $6,000 or $5,000 on a $3,000 horse. You know, if the option is not to do it and lose the horse, I get it. I mean, I'm also practical. I also get why people don't keep horses. You know, maybe a horse after 14 years old, something happened and it can't wear a harness. And you can't, it costs $1,000 a year to keep a horse. I'll bet that's a pretty accurate number. I'm just making that up, but I'll bet that's fairly close. And maybe you don't have a lot of pasture and you can't do that. And you sell it to somebody else or give it to somebody else or whatever it is. I get it, and I'm with you. I know how that stuff works. I also get the other side of it, people that do keep them. And I appreciate that side of it. I do some of each, to be honest with you. And to be also honest with you, generally I've been lucky, and my horses work way into their 20s. But, you know, everybody has bad luck. A few years ago, botulism come along. We didn't even know what the hell it was around here, and we lost about $35,000 worth of horses in 2 days, and had a very expensive vet bill on top of that with a dead horse. You know, it happens. It's part of this. So, you know, be prepared for that if you're new to horses. Be prepared for the heartache. Whoa, Nick. Tell me when to stop so that first log will roll up there by that, the end of it's by that soft maple chunk. Gotta go a little more?
So you're trying to get it level right here, right?
Okay, Nick. This top log needs to come to about here.
All right.
Now, what we know is horses are not robots. So if we want this log here to stop here, we have to start saying whoa about here. So Nick's going to tell me whoa about there, and hopefully the horses will stop here and we'll roll it into place nice and neat. Whoa.
All right.
Pretty good?
Yeah.
I hesitate to even talk about this. A lot of people have strong opinions about it, whether you're talking about horses or people. A friend of mine, Howard Van Ord, used to say, you know, talk about an old team of oxen that somebody keeps around that wasn't worth much anymore, and the value was down to nothing, and he'd say, well, I'm glad somebody keeps them around. What would happen to you, Brandt, when you get old and people don't want to keep you around anymore? I'm hoping to hell I go off to the slaughterhouse, or whatever the human equivalent is. Hannibal likes the slaughterhouse. Hannibal, don't worry about him. But seriously, that's my opinion. That's who I am. That's how Ainsworths are in general. And I don't feel like I have to apologize for feeling that way. That's how I feel about myself, you know, is, you know, when it's time, it's time, you know. Gene Hill, one of my favorite writers of all time. I hope nobody reads a lot of Gene Hill, because if you read Gene Hill and then you'll read mine, you might think I'm plagiarizing him. Not really, but I'm definitely influenced by Gene. He told a story about being on a safari in Africa, and they're watching elephants. And there was an old elephant being shunned from the herd, and they were hunters, and Gene and his partner were, and it was kind of sad to see and touching. They didn't want that old elephant in, and he was sick and not doing well, and one of the hunters ended up shooting that elephant. And Gene's hunting buddy said to him, you know, how do you feel about that? And Gene says, I'll tell you what, I not only hope for it for myself, I pray for it. And that's how Gene lived. I mean, legendary for writing about his drinking and smoking, and he died of lung cancer at a, you know, moderately young age, in his mid-70s. And he meant that, you know, he wanted to live his life on his terms and die on his terms. And, you know, I can kind of dig that. I hope I'm paraphrasing that story right about the elephant. I might have to go back and read that. Well, talking about elephants, Nick, that's not getting money in the bank, is it? Getting logs on the ground is. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm usually pretty good about wearing ear protection and face protection. I'm not doing much cutting today, so I'm wearing my hard hat, but not the rest of it. I'm usually one of the best that about holding onto a chainsaw with two hands and having my thumb wrapped. Right there, you saw I had a bug on my nose, and I reached up and I itched my nose while I was cutting. Sure, I was safe. I had the logs dug in, and that's still a habit I shouldn't get into. So feel free to call me out on that stuff, because you're right if you say those are things I shouldn't do. I saw an interesting video the other day, and I highly recommend this channel to anybody. Game of Logging is the actual name of the channel. It's a fella up in Vermont who has taught the game of logging for years. And I'm telling you, you can gain so much chainsaw knowledge, especially as a professional chainsaw operator. And one thing he said, he goes to class, and a lot of his guys talk about how adamant they are about wrapping this thumb around a handle, making sure they wrap it around the handle. That's one safety rule they never break. And then they run the saw, and first thing they do, their thumb's off the handle. And he says what they do is they, as soon as the throttle goes in, the thumb comes up. Throttle goes off, thumb goes down. Throttle in, thumb up. And he says they don't even realize they do it. So maybe we'll take that home with us. That's something we should all be aware of. And if you're one of those people, I don't think I am. I'll go back and watch videos if I am. But I'm more aware of it now after watching his videos. Again, it's Game of Logging is the name of the video, and he gives you terrific chainsaw and logging instructions. By the way, I hope that guy's not watching my video. He'd call me the biggest dude in the world. The biggest rookie poser because of running a dull saw. This saw is not exactly sharp and cutting up to its specs. What I'm looking for is to show you why I touched the ground a little bit here on one of those last cuts I made, and that's why it's not sharp. And I should sharpen it. even. About all we can do. You know what? No, we can go a little more. Tell me when the end of that log will pass. Yep. About 2 feet?
About. Maybe more.
Well, I want it to pass this soft maple too. Whoa. Boy, oh boy, Nick. Tell you what we'll do, we're going to cut this before the horses inch ahead. They haven't moved when they're not supposed to all day, but when it comes to something like this, I don't want to give them the opportunity to move. Years ago, I read a quote attributed to Abraham Lincoln, and what he said is, if I have 3 hours to fell a tree, I'm going to spend 2 hours sharpening the axe. Well, I should spend 2 minutes sharpening this saw instead of going through this. So what we were talking about, I want that tip of that hard maple to pass this, so maybe we can roll that hard maple up in here in a neat position. Come on over here, Nick, and we're going to show something. Hard maple, soft maple, side by side. I don't know if you folks can see accurately. So the hard maple, very clear, very white. Soft maple has a grayish or a pinkish heart a lot of times. It's definitely softer. I mean, my knife will stick right in it. The hard maple, well, it will, but I have to touch it a little harder. But the bark is just definitely softer. You know, look at that bark peel off. That bark doesn't peel near as much on the hard maple. It's just a hard thing to teach people. What do you think the chances of that log rolling up in here nicely are?
Not sure.
So here's where I went on my ass earlier when Nick and I were carrying a log. I fell down in there and then we rolled that a little too far. I think what I'm going to do, because I don't think a log truck can reach that and they might not even see it, I think we're going to put a chain on there, put our horses out here behind the camera, and pull that back up on the landing where a buyer can buy it and a log truck can reach it when we get done. So sometimes we're a little excessive with how much extra work we put into things. You're the victim of that, Nick. You're the one that ends up messing around with all my harebrained ideas. Hold on. Yeah, that's a pretty nice hard maple. When you're dealing with hard maple, the sapwood, the white wood, is a valuable part, and this has a lot of white wood. The brown wood is number 2 common at best lumber. That's why hard maple has a maturity, and this tree has just about reached a maturity. When it gets much bigger than this, the tree grows slower and the heart grows bigger all the time, and the value goes down on hard maple. Your hickory, your oak, a lot of times cherry, everything has a shelf life, but not as much as a hard and soft maple does. Ash doesn't matter as much anymore. Of course, ash is dying due to the emerald ash borer. But even if it wasn't, they don't pay near as much attention to heart size. The difference between the brown wood and the white wood in ash is fractions of a penny. The difference between brown wood and white wood in your maples is the difference between lightning and lightning bugs, as Mark Twain would say. Look at that, Nick. We were an inch off. We're about a ½ inch off. Well, we're going to show her the PV is handier than the cant hook, and we're going to try to budge that a little. You know the best thing ever invented for this? Skid steer.
Yeah.
But you know, there we go. That trick worked. I moved that log just a ½ inch or so. Now there's room for that to clear. Years ago, there was an article in the Northern Logger magazine, and it was a guy up in New Hampshire where mechanized logging is taken over. And he was still a hand logger, we call him, with a chainsaw and a cable skidder. And he called his chainsaw, back then you could buy a new saw for $600-700. He called his chainsaw his feller buncher, his delimber, his slasher, everything all in one. And that's kind of what this is. This is a $100 tool, or go pick up one at a garage sale for 20 bucks. And it does everything that a $20,000 skid steer can do. Not really, but it suffices a lot of times. Nick, why don't you get that chalk up here, Chalk it about here. There we go. So, not that I need a break, but we're going to step away from this and show something. I want you to look at Zodiac's harness. I'm going to look at this. Now, this tells me two things. One, Zodiac's not being as good a boy as he could, because I don't like him leaning backwards and sitting in the damn britchin'. I want him leaning forward and on that collar. But we'll work on that as we go along, you know. Rome wasn't built in a day. Why would we want to build Rome? But what I do want to show is this is just too long. 22 inches is the right length, even on a big horse. And when it's too long, this is what you get. And you can get the tongue lifted and off the collar, just like this is, but it's not as easy, and you end up with a lot of this nonsense. And what I mean, he should be leaning into the collar, whoop, like that, keeping that taut, and then keeping his britchin' loose. Zodiac's a little bit of a bad boy sometimes. Hey, he is not. It's horse appreciation time. He's a good boy. And Zodiac has came a long ways in his training and continues to every day. Be ready with the thing. Okay. Well, I miscalculated. What else is new? There's just not enough room for this log to pass between these other two logs. We're trying to fit a 14-foot log in a 12-foot hole. Doesn't work. But we're doing the best we can and making this as neat as possible. Doing the best that I can. I think it'll stay. I think that'll stay, and we can use the PV elsewhere, or the wheel chock elsewhere. Again, let's pull this ahead a step. Whoa. And let's watch our release hit. Whoa. before I had this cart, I usually logged with drive grabs that you pound right into a log. One time I was logging, I decided to use a choker for whatever reason, and it's the cart, if you look back in some of our videos, it's the cart we use on the manure spreader, if you look in our farming videos. And it had a bar like this, but it did not have any release. Nobody'd heard of them back then. And I hooked the log up and got it lifted, and we got out to the road, and the horses were in the road, actually. That was the way the landing was set up, a country road, a dirt road. But horses were in the road, and I couldn't release that log. What I ended up doing is, well, you see Nick and I doing the other videos where each of us, I had to go back in the woods to get my buddy who was working with me. He was cutting firewood. And we each put a PV on each side, and we were young and strong, and lifted, and then I got that loose. About 6 months later, my buddy Norm Ecker introduced me to these carts, and I've never gone back. Ooh, Norm is another buddy that I miss. One of the old fellas, one of the good ones. You know, there's always platitudes these days about gratitude and how we should appreciate everything. Think about the people who want the job you have, or whatever they say. Think about, Nick, why don't you film and bring that team around while I roll this? Can you do it all at once?
Yeah. Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
Good job, Nick. Well, all those platitudes are correct. You know, we should appreciate things more. Appreciate our jobs that you hate. You should appreciate it more. There's people that would die to have that job. You know, appreciate each other. I'm big on that, actually. I've been on top of the world, and I've been on my ass, and I appreciate it when things are going well. And even when I'm on my ass, I appreciate what I have done. But you know, I'm a work in progress, just like any of us should be. And just today, and that's the whole focus of this video, just today I got thinking, I don't appreciate the horses for just being horses and what they do for us as much as I should. So that's kind of why I'm a little bit have a little bit different tone than usual today. And a lot of people do appreciate horses for being horses. And I need to do that more. What am I doing? Oh, I'm staring at myself. Ha! Well, Nick, more logs. Well, I think I'll wrap this video up here today. Talking about appreciating our horses. Now, I do recommend appreciating our horses, especially the working ones and the ones that help us out here a lot. And the ones that give a lot to us and the trust they put into us. Don't confuse appreciating your horse with being barn blind. Don't think you have the best horse that ever lived just because it's your horse, or don't think he's without, or she is without fault just because it's your horse. You know, be realistic. That'll help you as a breeder and a horseman. I mean, I have faults, you have faults, we all do, but let's be realistic about them. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate you or that I can't be appreciated with my faults. And it doesn't mean we can't appreciate horses, but and once you know the faults, you know, maybe you can work around them a little bit. You know, maybe I know that Zodiac starts a little slow. Well, maybe I can work around that. He doesn't, but I'm just making up a scenario. Maybe I can work around that and put him in a position with another horse or work him single or something where he can get away with starting slow. Or maybe, you know, Zodiac's young. He's fairly early in his training. Maybe he might want to walk off if I set the lines down and went and did something else, which he might here and there, and don't put him in a position where he can do that. So if you're not aware and open about your faults, you know, you can't overcome them. But that doesn't mean a horse can't have some fault and yet be appreciated, and appreciate all they give for us and what they put out for us, you know, the heart they give us and the effort and the cooperation. Just take us on ahead, Nick, and we'll film the horses working and we'll appreciate them as we finish this one off. Again, hard maple, soft maple, just so you know, folks. Hard maple on the right, soft maple on the left.
We can get it with firewood later.
That's a different type of power, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's power, but it's torque, more torque.
Right, bottom end stuff, yep.
Well, I'll explain what's going on. Nick's running the camera. We're on Andy Herzog's log job. These trees are being cut to make a view for a house that's being built. We're making this log look a lot better. I think it's, what, a 14 now or 16? Yeah. And Andy is getting to use Cy Hopkins' old chainsaw. This is Marty Hopkins here today with us, Cy's son. Cy was a logger of quite a lot of note around here. We all looked up to Cy. And that is the first 66 that anybody had in this area. All the local dealers talk about that. And needed a few things, and Cy got her up and going again. And
Marty.
Like Marty, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm thinking back. Yep, and quite a saw. 66s were quite a model. So what we did, that on the end is not going to make a good log. We're going to pull it up to the landing just to have it out of the way, but it pulled hard. The horses made a really good, honest effort, but it pulled hard. So we're going to lose that bottom 4 foot, and we're going to take this, and it's still going to pull hard, but they should be okay.
I figured they probably have to take it back.
Be easier.
I'll just dump it and
What's that?
I can just dump it down here and cut the butt off.
That's good for a little bit, Mac. Well, ooh. Every time I warn us it's going to pull hard, it pulls easy. Easy for me to say. I'm back here holding on to the strap. Whoa. Back. Ooh. Back. Whoa. Whoa. Back. Can you? Back. Whoop. Good boys.